Hello everyone, it's me, Ariana. Today I want to talk about the new Hunger Games prequel, The Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, which I repeatedly call The Ballad of Snakes and Songbirds. I don't know why. Let's give a little backstory, okay? So if you didn't know, President Snow's first name is Coriolanus, right? So the main reason that I really felt compelled to make this video is because this past school semester I was studying abroad in England, as some of you might know, and I was taking a class that had a lot to do with Shakespeare. We read and went to go see a production of Shakespeare's Coriolanus. I got some things to say. I really wanted to make this video because Coriolanus isn't the most obscure Shakespeare play by a long shot, but I know that not many people have to study it for school. It's not like Romeo and Juliet or A Midsummer Night's Dream, The Tempest, that sort of thing. So I figured my input on that might be interesting to some people, and on top of that, because I am going to save that for last, but there will be timestamps in the description if you'd like to skip forward to that. I'm going to talk about why I think this is a great book. I'm going to talk about why I think this is a really good prequel. I'm going to talk about how Suzanne Collins has written a really great, morally ambiguous character, and I'm going to talk about how this prequel adds to the overall series, how it elevates the main trilogy, because I do think that's a requirement for what makes a good prequel. And then I'm going to go into Shakespeare's influence on it and just why it was really smart of Suzanne Collins to do that, to make those connections. This is going to be a spoilery video. If you have not read it, I really encourage you to go read it and then come back so that we can have a discussion together. All these thoughts are my own, just how I interpreted the story. If any of the things I say weren't what Suzanne Collins intended, it's my opinion. Yeah, let's get into it. If you see me looking down, my computer with all my notes is there, so I apologize if I'm looking down a lot, but I just want to make sure I get my thoughts across in a semi-articulate way. So first off, like I said, I want to talk about how Suzanne Collins wrote the main character, President Snow, as a young 18-year-old. I know a lot of people were wary about this book when they found out it was going to be following him, because the last thing we needed was a book that made us sympathize with him. In my opinion, I think Suzanne Collins successfully wrote his character. Throughout most of the book, Suzanne Collins does not paint Coriolanus as a good or bad person, which I think is, well, it makes sense because it's third person, but it isn't his point of view, so he's not going to completely think of himself as a good or bad person. You know, two people are just not fully good or bad. We get to see how a lot of his opinions have been passed down to him by family, society, or authority figures. I think that was done really well because although we don't need to sympathize with him, I think it is good for us to understand him. By the end of the book, we do understand that he is a bad person who has done good things. I think that was a great move on Suzanne Collins' part, because I think a lot of authors would take the route of just, oh, no one can be pointed as good or bad, but Suzanne Collins knows that we've read the main trilogy, we know that he's not a great guy, and so I think it was really interesting to paint a character who is bad, but through this book we see that he is capable of doing good things and has done good things in his life. I think that was a really interesting character to explore. Also, the good things that he has done in life have been self-serving in at least one way or another. Examples of this that I have written down here: saving Lucy Gray, who is his tribute, he's a mentor in this book. Saving Lucy Gray ensures that he gets the girl, gets a full ride to university, and looks good overall to both Dr. Gall and the public. And although I do believe that he did genuinely care about Sejanus, he said himself that saving him wasn't optional. He had to save him in order to save himself. And of course I'm referring to when Sejanus breaks into the arena and Snow is sent in to save him. Suzanne Collins also actively surrounds Snow, I'll refer to him as Snow, with people who are better than him to stop her audience from completely sympathizing with him. These people are significantly better people than him by comparison, and I'm mainly talking about Sejanus, Dean Highbottom, and Lucy Gray. Sejanus is completely empathetic with the tributes, with the districts. He comes from the districts, openly talks about his distaste for the way the capital treats their people, and Snow does not agree with him. Whereas Snow does a lot of things for show, Sejanus does some of those same things out of genuine concern for the people around him, such as giving food to the tributes. Dean Highbottom, at first we think that he's like a bad guy. You know, Snow doesn't like him, but later on in the novel we hear him talk about how the Hunger Games are wrong and how Panem is not treating the citizens of the districts correctly. And Lucy Gray, here are my first impressions. I literally wrote down, hopefully not a manic pixie dream girl. When I first read Lucy Gray's introduction of her singing on the stage at the Reaping, I was like, no way Suzanne Collins wrote a manic pixie dream girl into a dystopian novel. Like, I didn't even think that was possible, and luckily she did not turn out to be that. But my first impression of her was like, okay, she's some quirky girl from District 12, that's interesting. But that quickly faded, and I actually really liked how at the beginning of the novel she really seemed to have the upper hand when it came to her and Snow's relationship. When they first meet at the zoo, when they're both in the cage, he tells her that he's supposed to help her in the games, and she's like, oh, good luck, gorgeous. Page 44 for reference. It definitely foreshadows that she's a really strong person, stronger than Snow anticipates for sure. I did want it to be a romance from the beginning. They had chemistry, the flirting was cute, it was fun, it made me feel things, okay? Even though I knew he was a terrible person, I was rooting for him because of this. In chapter 4, he's already feeling sparks like upon like touching her hand for the first time. I felt like it was really fast, but I think it makes a lot of sense having read the whole book. I really liked all the interactions between them. When Lucy is caged in the monkey exhibit at the zoo, I liked all the scenes where he visited her, he talked, and he gave her food, all of that. I thought they were really good moments. Those were some of my favorite parts of the book. Their views on society couldn't be more different, so it's a really interesting relationship. She's free-spirited. He couldn't get more clean-cut. He is a capital boy. He's prim and proper. Just very different than her. She's just so much more likable and genuine than Snow. But because she likes him and trusts him for the majority of the book, her respect for him kind of makes you want to respect him. And I think this is the same for Sejanus. Sejanus is Snow's best friend in the book, basically, by the end. He says it himself that Sejanus is like a brother to him. Snow's company kind of lends to this false hope that his company indicates this sort of reflection of his own true self. And I think this was really smart for Suzanne Collins to include in the book, that he was a likable person, that good people did like him. It wouldn't have been an enjoyable book if the whole time we hated him. If we were like, this character is terrible, he's a bad person. I personally like that I was conflicted as to if I should root for him or not. He was doing bad things sometimes, and he had really bad views on society. I rooted for him because he wasn't terrible to everyone, and really good people liked him and trusted him and respected him. Even Tigress, you know, she is awesome. I really doubt that Suzanne Collins planned on Tigress being a cousin of President Snow when she originally wrote her, like in the main trilogy. She could have, you know, I wouldn't know, but like, it was so out of nowhere at first. I wound up liking it, I think, because it does make sense. First seeing her name was like, oh, is this the same Tigress? Yeah, back to Lucy Gray. Snow's affection for Lucy Gray is even self-serving in itself. Examples of Snow's perception of their relationship. These are some things I have written down. On page 171, he has jealousy after Lucy Gray sings a song about her ex-lover, who we eventually meet. For a moment, right, this jealousy actually succeeds in taking Snow's eyes off the main prize of winning the games and getting his full ride to university, right? Which I thought was a really good moment because it humanized him. Jealousy is a very human feeling that everyone experiences. It also does elevate his flawed character because he feels a sense of ownership when it comes to Lucy Gray. Immediately after this moment of jealousy, Snow begins referring to Lucy Gray as his girl. He uses the word ownership himself. So he likes having Lucy Gray in his life because it makes him feel good about having someone. Throughout the book, you don't know this for sure. I mean, I really did feel like he had true feelings for her, but his own control over her was more important to him than those feelings. So Lucy Gray and her place in District 12 also has quite a big factor in the story that trails to the Hunger Games trilogy. And so now we're gonna get into my second point, how this prequel elevates the main Hunger Games trilogy. Let's talk a little bit more about Lucy Gray and who she is, where she comes from. Lucy Gray sings with her family, the Covey. The Covey have nomadic origins but have been placed in District 12 after being caught, I guess you could say, because they don't want people traveling around. As we know from the main trilogy, District 12 is home to many Jabberjays and Mockingjays. These have significant place in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes. The way I see it, talk surrounding these birds exemplifies not only how Lucy Gray and Snow are far too different to be together, but also foreshadows the legacy of Katniss Everdeen, the future legacy of Katniss Everdeen. And I got some examples written, so I'm going to be looking down reading them. On page 169, Lucy Gray says, "The show's not over until the Mockingjay sings." This is actually the first time Snow has ever heard of a Mockingjay. He thinks that Lucy Gray is making them up at first. I think it's very significant that Lucy Gray, who Snow clearly obsesses over throughout this book, is the person who first introduces Snow to the concept of Mockingjays is what I'm trying to say. If it wasn't for her, he would never even come in contact with a real one, probably. When he is sent away to become a peacekeeper and he chooses District 12 because that's where Lucy Gray is. Page 352, it states, "Coriolanus felt sure he spotted his first Mockingjay and he disliked the thing on sight." On the surface level, he really just doesn't like these birds. Lucy Gray and the Covey love these birds, think they're beautiful, they sing back to them. I think that is the underlying reason Snow despises them, is because Mockingjays force you to reflect, right? So they talk about how when there's a public hanging for the town to watch, usually the criminals, the person being hanged, usually their last words are mimicked back by the Mockingjays. The first time we see this is when Arlo, is that his name? I think it's Arlo. When Arlo is being hanged for rebellion, his lover Lil is in the crowd. Last thing he says is, "Run, Lil, run." He's hanged, and then immediately after, Mockingjays echo it back. Snow hates this. He says, "Why would you want to hear that sort of thing over and over again?" Clearly feeling bad that someone has been executed. He doesn't like having to face those feelings and face those emotions. Says, "Let's shoot them all and let's try to kill them all," and obviously he doesn't succeed in doing that, but he wants to kill them all. He doesn't want Mockingjays to exist. Obviously, later, Katniss Everdeen takes the title Mockingjay as she leads a rebellion against the Capitol, which, like, that's pretty cool, I think. Lucy Gray, like I said, is a singer and writes all of the Covey's lyrics. Deep in the Meadow, which Katniss sings to Rue in the arena in the first book in the trilogy. Lucy Gray wrote that. Lucy Gray is also the one who wrote The Hanging Tree, which Katniss sings out of rebellion in Mockingjay. Yeah, The Hanging Tree is referring to that execution I was talking about, the Run Lil Run with Arlo. Originally, the song was written by Lucy Gray for her past lover because they used to meet up at the Hanging Tree, and her ex-lover makes Snow crazy jealous. Crazy jealous, which I think makes the song that much better as a rebellion song. He hates it originally for that reason. By the end of the novel, the song is used to secretly let Snow know where to meet Lucy Gray when they're about to run away together, and obviously that does not go down well. And on top of all that, Sangus is hanged from that very tree, and it's because of Snow. Okay, Snow ratted him out. So giving this new personal connection to the tree, and the song gives Katniss's future action of singing the song so much more weight and significance. Like, just sit back and really think about the concept of President Snow. After all of this, you know, President Snow is watching a live feed of the Mockingjay singing The Hanging Tree out of rebellion. Are you kidding? He was probably fuming. Like, it's amazing. And this is not my original thought, so I won't talk too much about it. I will link an article below that I found about it, because I don't want to take credit for it, obviously, but some fans are speculating that Katniss is actually a descendant of the Covey of Maud Ivory, who is Lucy Gray's cousin. My friend actually let me know about that, and I found it super interesting. Obviously nothing's confirmed because Suzanne Collins has not said anything, but that's a really cool theory, and I kind of like to believe it too. I thought I would mention it. Something small that I think is worth mentioning, in my opinion, I made a note of it, is that Lucy Gray also introduces Snow to Katniss, the plant. This is on page 435. One of the Covey hands Lucy Gray some Katniss, and she goes, "Hey, you found some Katniss," and then examines it and says, "Little too early yet." Just, I don't know, I feel like this is a little nod to the main trilogy, saying, you know, eventually Katniss will be ready, you know? If anything, it's a cute little way to give a nod to Katniss. And overall, I think this book adds to the main trilogy in getting a look at what the Hunger Games looked like at the beginning of the tradition, or whatever you want to call it. Definitely gives us more of an understanding of how hype around such a thing could have developed. This book definitely puts more emphasis on the fact that these tributes in the Hunger Games are children. The time this book takes place, this is the 10th annual Hunger Games, there are no tributes who are like ready to fight, you know, who willingly volunteer as tribute, who spend their lives training for the prize. There is no prize at this point in the book, and so these are all just really scared kids. Main trilogy is already in that point of view of, you know, people are really excited by the Hunger Games and people love betting on it and stuff, but this is before that, and so gives new weight to the Hunger Games. We already know that's terrible, we know that they're children, but this is like harder to read about, I feel like, because it's really just young kids being treated like animals. A standout moment for me is on page 280. This is during the games, and a tribute called Reaper, if you read it, you know who I'm talking about, is kind of seen as one of the biggest threats in the arena. Not that he's like excited to kill, but he has told the other tributes, like, "I'm sorry that I have to kill you." He doesn't want to participate, but he knows that he has to, and he knows what he has to do to win. But there is a part where he cuts part of the Panem flag and he runs around with it like it's a cape, like on his back like it's a cape, and that was a really standout moment for me. It really stuck with me because it reminded the reader, like, this is a child, like that's a pretty adolescent thing to do. Really liked that Suzanne Collins decided to emphasize that in this book. I have some other differences noted. The fact that tributes are starved, kept in cages at the zoo. The capital offers no comfort to the tributes like they do in the main trilogy. The arena's kind of lame because the arena was the one thing that kind of confused me in this book. I couldn't quite picture how the entire games could take place in a destroyed stadium of sorts. I mean, it makes sense because the games were in early development, but anyway, that's not important to what I'm trying to say. But little side note, these games are the first time that sponsors are allowed. It was actually Snow's idea. By the end, we find out that it was Snow's idea to also include monetary prizes for the victors and the districts that they're from to get the public involved. And I'm going to use that as a segue to start talking about Coriolanus the play. A little summary about Coriolanus the play. From this point on, I am going to refer to the main character in this play as Coriolanus and refer to the Coriolanus in this book as Snow. So Snow, Coriolanus. Whenever you hear me say Coriolanus, it's not about this guy. The conflict at the beginning of this play is that the common people are mad at the government because they believe that the government is hiding corn from them. In reality, there's just a corn shortage, but the people believe they're hiding corn and that they are starving them. So it follows a man named Caius Marcius who is openly just not fond of common people but loves the city and succeeds in defending the city by himself, and he is given the new name of Caius Marcius Coriolanus and is deemed a war hero. Deals a lot with trust, betrayal, but also the influence that politicians and government have on the public and the relationship between the two, because Coriolanus is being told to use his war hero status to move up within government, and it is a tragedy. It's the rise and fall of Coriolanus. I will link the free No Fear Shakespeare version of this down below in the description if you'd like to read it. I recommend it. I really liked it. Suzanne Collins names a lot of her characters after older ancient characters or public figures, but giving the main character a name that directly references a major work of fiction wouldn't be that great if she did that without there being a connection, there being a parallel. I feel like you can't name a character after something that iconic and have there be no rhyme or reason to it. So I had my eyes peeled, right? That had me looking out for things throughout my whole reading experience, which actually made it really fun. The thing that really made me want to make this video and share my thoughts, the fact that Coriolanus, the play, also has a lot to do with the relationship between Coriolanus and his mother. Coriolanus's mother's name in the play, guess what it is? Volumnia. Whose name is Volumnia in this bad boy? None other than Dr. Gall. Dr. Volumnia Gall. So let's talk about it. I'm going to discuss the similarities and differences between the Volumnias in both of these. We first see Dr. Volumnia Gall on page 58, and she is introduced as a professor at the university and also the head game maker of the Hunger Games. From the very start, we can pick up on the fact that Dr. Gall sees great potential in Snow. So from the very beginning, he wants to please her. This is similar to Coriolanus and his mother in the play. Unlike Coriolanus and Volumnia, Snow and Dr. Gall both share the opinion that a good face needs to be put on for the public. An example of this is after Arachne's throat is slit by a tribute at the zoo, and we read, "He remembered the camera streaming live to the Capitol audience. He had no idea what to do for Arachne, but he did not want to be seen cringing and clinging. His terror was a private thing, not meant for the public," and that was on page 100. This is why, for example, Gall brings him in after another fellow mentor dies and says, "I'm only telling you now so that at least one of you will be able to have something intelligent to say essay to Lepidus. That's on page 281. Gall is very clearly trying to mold Snow into a mini-me of sorts. She's very open to him about her views on society. After Snow kills a tribute in the arena out of self-defense, Gall is happy that he got that experience. He describes it as a transformative opportunity. I felt like this could be related back to Volumnia in the play. When Volumnia hears that Coriolanus has all these injuries and cuts and wounds from battle, she's super excited about it. Volumnia makes it very clear in the play that she would rather her son be brave and dead than alive with no claim to glory. This makes the idea of her son going off to war very exciting for her because she sees him as an extension of herself. And I think the same could be said for Dr. Gall. Snow's success is Dr. Gall's success because he's adopted her agenda. Like I sort of hinted at before, Volumnia and Dr. Gall both share the idea that pleasing the public is important, and it is very important to give thought to your actions. After the bombing in the arena, all of the tributes are pretty distraught about it. I mean, their own lives were put at risk. People have died, their classmates have died. Morale is down, to say the least, and Dr. Gall says to the tributes, "Your emotions are running high. I understand, I do, but you must learn to harness and contain them. Wars are won with heads, not hearts." And Coriolanus, when the public is sort of against Coriolanus, he's talking with his emotions, basically, about the citizens. His mother, Volumnia, says, Act 3, Scene 2, "Pray be counseled. I have a heart as little apt as yours, but yet a brain that leads my use of anger to better vantage." Basically saying, listen, I get how you're feeling, I have strong emotions too, but I give thought to my actions. You can't be this rash, you need to think before you act. So these two Volumnias have a lot in common. This Volumnia deserves your respect, like way more. She is a very strong female character. This one's pretty evil. Let's talk about Snow as Coriolanus. As I said, in this play, Coriolanus thinks of others as lesser than, and he lets them know it. Pretty vocal about his distaste for the common people. That's one of his main obstacles, the fact that people don't trust him, don't like him, because he openly insults them to their faces. Snow sees himself as the exact same way, but he's really good at concealing it. He wants to gain respect from the people around him. He wants to please others because he knows it'll help him get higher in life. The only way we really know what poorly he thinks of people from the districts is from his internal thought. Page 135 in the arena, he's looking around. It says, "The entrance was for poor people," Coriolanus thought. Or perhaps not poor. The word plebeian came to mind. Not nice thoughts. Also, plebeian is a word used in this play to refer to common citizens because the word actually means like Roman commoner. I definitely think that was a little nod to the play. Another example, page 194, he's describing people from the districts. He's describing them as human but bestial, not evolved, a shapeless mass of unfortunate barbaric creatures. And that sounds like something you could read straight out of this play, coming out of Coriolanus's mouth to a common person straight to their face. So at one point or another, both Snow and Coriolanus are deemed heroes of some sorts. While it can be argued, believe it or not, that Coriolanus is pretty humble about his achievements, Snow is anything but humble. Coriolanus hates the attention he receives. He does not want to be put on display. He's being urged to show the public his battle scars in order to elevate his position in society, and he just does not want to. He sees it as almost degrading to show off these things for the public to see. Snow, on the other hand, feeds off of that sort of attention. He's pretty much the inverted Coriolanus, which I think is accurate to say for Dr. Gall as well. She's like the inverted Volumnia, evil and conniving rather than caring, strong female character. Gall is strong, but definitely abuses that power and strength. And then there are also just little things that I perceived as nods to the Shakespeare play, kind of like the use of the word plebeian. Snow's distaste for group assignments. I don't know if this is a stretch. This is just how I perceived this. Snow hates group assignments, he hates working with people, and while that just seems relevant to his character because he does strike me as the type of person who doesn't want to work with others, like I mentioned, Coriolanus in the play goes to war with an army and the whole army chickens out, and then he rushes in through the gates, fights the battle on his own, and wins. On page 162 says, "The problem with group assignments is that one person usually does all the work," said Dr. Gall, giving Coriolanus a wink. This is referring to an actual group assignment that Snow did all the work on, but it's hard not to see a bit of a connection, especially with that wink. You're winking towards this. I don't know, if that was intentional, Suzanne Collins, I really liked it. I appreciated it. If not, I mean, it's just a fun moment in my head. Then also just use of mother-son relationships. I thought that it could definitely relate to this. So in the play, the reason that Volumnia has so much power over Coriolanus, because that is definitely a parallel between these two relationships. Dr. Gall has so much power over Snow. Actually, an example I wanted to say for that, but I didn't write it down. Page 229 literally says, "If Dr. Gall decided he was to go into the capital arena, that's where he would go, even if his prize was not at stake." Dr. Gall has a lot of power over Snow, to a point where you kind of almost question why. His mother is the only person who has any sort of control over him. Volumnia says goes, okay? If you've read the play, you know. If you know, you know. Dr. Gall has that same control over Snow. Dr. Gall is not his mother. The reason that Volumnia has so much control over Coriolanus is because she reminds him, "You're here because of me. I put you on this earth. I deserve respect." There is no greater power than his own mother. It was really interesting that mother-son relationships were kind of emphasized in this story, namely Sejanus and his mother, aka Ma, given the fact that Sejanus' last word as he's being executed is Ma, for his mother, and I think that is connected to this play in a way. And then Snow's mother's compact. Snow talks a lot about his mother throughout the story. Get to know her as quite a nice woman, a good person. I really liked how his mother's compact was used to symbolize his official turn to the dark side. Towards the very end, page 506, it states, "Lakewater had reduced his mother's rose-scented powder to a nasty paste, and he threw the whole thing in the trash." Pretty obvious symbolism there. His father's compass is still intact at this point. This is after chasing Lucy Gray by the lake. His father wasn't a good person, so he's picked a side. The last good part of him is gone. And that compact is obviously mentioned throughout the story, so it is significant. One of the most famous Shakespearean monologues is actually Volumnia's and Coriolanus. She actually says something that has stuck with me since reading it, which I will paraphrase in modern language. "If you betray your country, you're betraying me. You're betraying your mother." Do you think that by becoming the person that he is, by choosing that dark side, he is going against whatever good morals we are led to believe his mother had when she was alive? Maybe she tried to pass down. One other thing that I have here, when Snow is about to leave for District 12 and Tigress offers him a disguise, page 328, it says, "Coriolanus recognized a disguise when he saw it." Coriolanus in the play wears a disguise when he is traveling across enemy lines. Both put on disguises and look different when they're being banished. Both are being dismissed in a way. So yeah, overall, I really enjoyed this book. I definitely think it's worth a read. I do think it adds to the series. From now on, I will definitely be recommending fans of the trilogy pick up this and give it a try. Let me know what you thought of it. I know some people really disliked it. I could talk on and on about it. I definitely had a lot of thoughts as I was reading it. I don't know if I got everything I wanted to say across. I could totally write an essay on everything that I just talked about. Like, I could expand on it for sure. Not going to, who does that sort of thing for fun? I really liked the characterization. I thought the third part was a little draggy at first, but I really liked the very end of it. Yeah, let me know if you've read Coriolanus, if you've picked up on any other connections or parallels that I didn't, because I found this really, really interesting. Kind of looks like snow. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you liked that video. If you'd like to follow me on any of my social media, the links will be down below, and if you'd like to subscribe, very much appreciated. See you next time. Bye.